Hey guys, Yassas. Welcome to the second Greek genealogy webinar by Greek Ancestry. First of all, I would like to thank you all who joined us last week, but also welcome our new participants. I'm especially grateful to those of you now watching from Australia, where I think it's like 5 a.m., which is sad. So please, everyone, write a big thank you in the chat for our Greek Australians, okay? Secondly, for those of you who might be interested, yesterday we released another 100,000 new records to our collections. They are for Evia, Thessaloniki, Lamia, Pheotida area, the Ionian Islands, Mani, and finally, we have decided to run a webinar every Saturday at this same time, at least for the next month. So just keep that in mind, okay? Now, let's get started. Last week, I made a brief introduction to the webinars, explaining the reason why we decided to run them. We believe that the more you know about the records themselves, the better you will be able to understand and use the information they include. We always need to remember that the records we use were not created for genealogical purposes. They were created to cover the needs of the state, bureaucracy, the church, society. This is why all records are so different and why we need them all to reconstruct our family history. We are starting with the most common types of Greek records, and week after week, we'll be addressing more specialized, complicated topics. Today's topic is male registers, and like last week when we were discussing voter lists, we are going to start by posing a very basic question. What is a male register? A male register, or as we call it in Greek, mitroarenon, is a list of an area's male population. Early records include the individual's year of birth and place of birth, and his father's name, while later records also include his mother's name, information about the birth certificate, and notes on when and why the individual was deleted from the register. Male registers can be found in archival repositories like the GAC, the Greek General State Archives, libraries, and even locally at municipal buildings. But in this case, at municipalities, access to the records is not open to the public. You need to be directly related to the individual, which makes research very complicated. But who and why kept such records? Let's say I'm the secretary in a town hall of a remote village on Andros Island. My village has about 500 residents, and I grew up here, so I know them all personally. But one day, my mayor asks me to create a male register. Why do we need that? See, we know everyone here. Why do we need that? Obviously, the male register is not for our own use. The central administration in Athens doesn't know us all here, but it needs to know of us for one basic reason: military service. Like today, men in Greece were required to serve in the military, and for this reason, bureaucracy needed to know when each man was born in order to call him for service. Male registers started being created in 1878. However, those and others created many years later are to some extent retrospective, which causes trouble. A good example is Crete. As you may remember, Crete became part of Greece in 1913. So in 1913, all of a sudden, the Greek state needed to know of Crete's male population in order to start calling them for service. So the male registers that were created then had to include males born earlier. Crete's earliest registration is of 1817, I think, Adonios Georgakakis from Campos in the Chania region. But as you understand, it wasn't obvious to identify all males, living and dead, residing there or elsewhere, who had been born in the past century. So what do we see in those records? is that the early decades of the 19th century are underrepresented. Roughly from the 1870s onwards, can we say that the male registers of Crete were more complete. The same can apply to any retrospective listing. This creates an issue of accuracy, though, right? How accurate are male registers? Of course, that's a tough question because it can be answered only as long as you have more records on the same person and you can find a discrepancy. Otherwise, if you only have a male register and nothing else, you just don't know, right? So personally, I have found many discrepancies between male registers and church records. In this case, I would trust the church record more than the male register because the birth church record was created for and right after the birth, while the male register could have been created later. But discrepancies can also be found between male registers and voter lists. And this is interesting because it connects this and last week's webinars. And let me give you an example. There are two voter lists for the village of Agios Ioannis in Sparta, and they are both in the Vlachogiannis collection we were talking about last week. The one voter list is of 1872, the other is of 1873. Now let's choose a voter from those two lists, Dimitrios Papagiannakos. Okay, according to the lists, in 1872, Dimitris was 31 years old. And according to the list of 1873, he was 32 years old then. So this means that according to both lists, Dimitris was born in 1841. And it's great that we have two lists confirming his year of birth. That's a blessing. It's really useful. But according to the male register of the same village, Agios Ioannis, Dimitris was born in 1844. So here we have a 3-year discrepancy. How can we know, in this case, which records were correct? The voter lists or the male register? The answer is that we need more records. We need his marriage record, we need his birth record if available, a school record, a contract, a military list. We need as many records as possible to confirm his year of birth. Now I guess I'm done with what I wanted to bring up. We'll turn to your questions now. Carol Kostakos is our chat moderator today, so we should all thank Carol in the chat, please. All right. So Carol has already sent me this question. Are there male registers for all of Greece? The answer is yes. What varies is the time period they cover, also depending on when the specific area became part of Greece. Their condition also varies, where they are preserved, how they can be accessed. Second question I see here, are male registers the same with birth records? That's a very, very interesting question. The answer is no. Male registers were meant for a different use. They do not include the individual's date of birth, but just the year. They don't include info on the church, the godparent, the priest, nothing. The birth record was created right after, or at least soon after, the event, the birth, while the male register could have been created much later. However, for those of you looking to get dual citizenship, this is going to be of interest. A male register record is considered an equivalent of the birth record, and it should be sufficient. So keep that in mind. That's really useful. Do you have male registers on Greek Ancestry? All right. So as I said before, we have male registers for Chania, all the region of Chania up to 1910. We're talking about like 60,000 records. And yesterday we published male registers from Evia and Halkida specifically. So yeah, we'll have more. We just try to add more areas and records all the time. What about female registers? Okay, this is another very interesting question. I was thinking we would have a webinar only about records for females, but let me address this really quick. Female registers exist. They do exist, but there is a confusion around when and why exactly female registers were created. I was expecting this question, so I did some research, asked some friends, archivists, and municipal employees. They all had different answers. So I do need to dig into this further. But let me tell you this. At the Sparta archives, for example, I was told there is a female register starting in the 1830s. It includes the woman's maiden and married name. We may consider this the earliest or one of the earliest female registers in the country. But there are many municipalities for which don't have early female registers, but very later, so later that sometimes it can be of any help in our research. So it really depends on the area you're interested in. As for the reason why female registers were considered relevant to the authorities, might be to help them get their portions of family property. When married, women were known by their husbands' names, right? So in order for a married woman to prove that she really had a share in her father's property, she needed to be registered somewhere with her original name, with her maiden name. And perhaps this explains the necessity for such a record. Another question I see here, why would someone be deleted from the register? That's a great question. They could be deleted because they had passed or because they had moved to another municipality. But remember that the date of the register's amendment, the individual's deletion, for example, does not represent the date of the event which caused the amendment. For example, the deletion might have happened, let's say, in 1952, and the reason was the individual's death. But the death could have happened much earlier. We don't know how much earlier, but it could be days, it could be months, it could be years. So always keep this in mind regarding the side notes. Would there be a male register for Karaburnu in the Smyrna area? There were Greeks living there, but it was under the Ottoman control. Correct. So, as you understand, the Greek state wouldn't have created a male register for people residing in Ottoman territory. Now, if some of those people, however, were in Greece initially, but migrated to Asia Minor at the end of the 19th century, that was really common, then they could have been registered in their original village. So that's something to keep in mind. Can we do research from Greece in Family History Library to find male registers? That's a very good question. So in Athens, there is a Family History Center. I don't remember the exact address, but there is one, and it's open to the public. You can definitely find information online. And they do have male registers for many areas of the country. I think they have for Argos and Nafplio. They have, I think, for Evia. They do have many male registers. Those are in microfilm. So you would have to go there in person and browse the pages. They are not digitized or indexed. So it needs hard work. How often did Athens request mail registers? Every year? That's a very good question. So mail registers were what we could characterize as a dynamic record keeping process. So every man who would be born in the village would be registered in the mail register. So the mail registers were updated on a yearly basis. What happens is that in many cases, we don't have the originals, but we have the retrospective, either retrospective registers or copies of registers, which are not always accurate enough. Was it the man's responsibility to register when they turned 18, 21? What age? I think the registration would happen when you were born at some point. Military service, the age for military service, I think it was 21 years. At least that was the case at the end of the 19th century. And that's really helpful when it comes to military lists. Military lists do not include the year of birth, but you can assume that the individual was 21 or about 21 years old when registered in that military list. So that's helpful there. Were men of all ages registered? I was a bit confused. All right, sorry for that. Yes, so you were not registered by age, you were registered by year of birth, okay? So this is why we have that earliest Cretan registration of 1817. The mail register was created in the 20th century after 1913, but based on some records they had, they knew that there was someone who had been born in that village in 1817. Does that clear things a bit? Would the villages in the mountains of Epirus create a register of mails? Would a copy be sent to Athens or elsewhere? So copies, as I said, copies of the mail registers can be found at archives, for example, archives in Epirus, or at the municipalities. They can also be found at the nomarchies. It's administrational unit which has been it's no longer here, and their archives, I think, in many cases, they are now at the GAC, at the General State Archives. So yes, Epirus would have mail registers, but those would not necessarily include many men before the 1870s, because Epirus became part of Greece, just like Crete, in the after the Balkan Wars and World War I. So the registrations there were retrospective initially, so not very accurate. From then on, from 1914 on, the registrations would have been more complete. Do you have mail registers for the village of Homerto in the Peloponnese? We do not have mail on our website. We do not have mail registers for the Peloponnese at the moment, but our goal is to have. My grandfather and his father. Sorry for the previous question. You should also try to contact the local archives, the archives of the region where your village belongs to, and they should tell you if they have a mail register or not. And then perhaps through your nearest Greek consulate, you could ask at the consulate to help you acquire a mail register record from the municipality in Hondero. My grandfather and his father came to US from Konaki in 1920. How likely am I going to be able to research prior to this date whether I still have family in Greece? I'm not sure where this village is. If he came in 1920, there should be a mail register for him, unless he came from one of the areas which were not part of Greece in 1900. So it really depends. If you can send us more info about this village, where exactly it is, perhaps I could be more helpful. I was in Kozani in 2016 and got a few records on my mom's family. I returned in 2017 to get more info and was advised I now needed to consult with an attorney to make a formal request. When I asked why, they said because of new privacy laws. Is this true? Well, according to Greek law, privacy laws do not apply for people who are dead. So personal data apply only for living people. Now, at municipalities, things are a bit different. It's always also the bureaucratical dimension you should keep in mind. But if you were trying to get many records, they could think, oh, what is he doing here? Or she, I don't know. And I was discussing this today with at a consultation I had. In Greece, at municipalities and churches, there is not a real archival mentality. So you need to understand that people do not really get it when you say that you want to do your genealogical research and that's important to you. How many copies of the mail register were created? I was able to research the mail registers in Tripolis for a number of the villages around Tripolis. Would those have been duplicates? Where are the originals held? So it's really likely you did see the originals. And if you could tell us where you find those mail registers, I could tell you more. If you found them at the municipality or the archives, the Greek General State archives, then they should be the originals. However, in some cases, I didn't want to bring this up today because it's a bit confusing, but in some cases, there are two mail registers for the same people, but these registers were kept at different administrational levels. So Agios Ioannis, for example, could have, in Sparta, the village, could have its mail register, and then another municipality could have the same mail registers, because as I was telling last time, the jurisdiction of municipalities and their names change very often. So you might find one village here and the same village belonging to another municipality in another mail register. Mail registers for Northern Epirus? I think not, unfortunately. My family is also partly from Northern Epirus. I think there are no mail registers. As I said, it's a record kept by the Greek state. So, and Northern Epirus was never Greek territory according to a treaty. It was, the Greek army was there, it was liberated, but it did not belong to Greece. My maternal grandfather died in Greece during World War II. I know little about him, but I do know he was originally from Kavala. My research on this family line has not resulted in any hits. Very frustrating. Do we have male registers for men from Kavala? Yes, the answer is yes. You need to contact the local archives in Kavala and ask them if they have the male registers and what time period they cover. If they don't have them, then you can contact the municipality or go there in person. I really hope you will find something. It's sad that um, archives are not very accessible here in Greece. Many of the records in Vamos, Crete, were destroyed during the war. So would there be any elsewhere? Um, so on Greek Ancestry, under Chania, in the search page, under Chania, you can find mail registers for the area of Vamos. We do have them. We do have them indexed. They come from the archives of Crete, but we have indexed them. So now you can just type the surname or the village you're interested in, and you will get the results. Registries from Amaliada. Mail registries for Archaea Corinthus, ancient Corinth. So as I said, at the moment on Greek Ancestry, we have mail registers for Evia and Chania, those two regions only, but we will keep adding material. My great-grandmother came from Rihea and then immigrated here to New York City. Where would I look for her birth records? Not sure if they would have a woman registry. She came here in the early 1920s. All right, so as I said, there are female registers. And I guess you mean Rihea in Laconia, if I'm not mistaken. In this case, it's real likely you will find something. Again, either at the local archives in Sparta, the Greek General Stair archives, or at the municipality in Rihia, where Rihia belongs. But then, as I explained, mail registers are not birth records. They are not the same thing. They were created for different purposes. Under different circumstances, they include different kind of information. So yeah, you should be very careful with this because it's not the same thing, right? Next week, we will be discussing another type of records. And I hope that, week after week, it's going to make more sense to all of you. Do we have any other questions? Oh, someone asked about South Epirus. Yes, records for South Epirus. It's the same thing as for any Greek territory, right? So Epirus became part of Greece in the 1910s, so there should be records for Epirus, South Epirus, for before and after then, with all the limitations I explained earlier. Here's the info where my grandfather and his father came from. Konaka is a village in Yithio, Laconia, the Peloponnese region. Okay, great. So you should, for Konaka, you should ask the archives in Sparta or locally at the municipality. Are the archives in Greece closed now due to COVID-19? Thank you, Georgia. Yeah, they currently are. I guess that they will open soon, but I think they still reply to emails. So and they are always very helpful. It's one of the best services our country has. Archives, records from Ottoman Pontus, migrations from Epirus to there. Um, so Ottoman Pontus was part of the Ottoman Empire, so there should be no Maya registers for there. Other types of records, yes, and we will discuss about them. I'm thinking we will have a webinar only for Asia Minor ancestry. So wait till that, okay? Are all the local archives of Greece in one place too? This is a question by Peggy. Peggy, can you, what do you mean? So, as I said, there are two repositories, or more anyway. The General State Archives, GAC, they have mail registers, not always, but they sometimes do. And then the mail registers are also found at the municipality. So these are the two places where you can look. Regarding municipalities, that's interesting. As I said, there have been many, many administrational changes in Greece regarding municipalities. So records travel a lot. And during these trips, records get lost. Okay. So in general, the municipality would have all the records for its territory, but it's also possible that if a village did not belong to it in the beginning, it's possible the mail register could have been lost or anything. Family registries are different than mail registries. Yes, family registries are Δημοτολόγιο. We will be discussing about this type of record next week, next Saturday. They are different to mail registries. Family registries, the only birth registries. No, family registries are different to birth records too. And then there are two types of birth records, those kept by the municipality and those created by the church. But we will cover all these topics when the time comes. But yeah, they're different. Now, another thing which is interesting about mail registers, especially when they were created retrospectively, is that some people wanted to avoid going to the army. So they could ask their uncle, who was the secretary or the mayor in the village, to fix the year of birth so that they don't serve. That happened a lot, and in many cases it explains the discrepancies we see between mail registers and the voter lists, or mail registers and the birth records, right? Because why would it be wrong? Someone asks if it's free to look up names on Greek Ancestry, or is there a fee? It's free to look up names on Greek Ancestry. If you order the record, then if you find a record and you want to order it, then yes, there is a fee for that. So at the bottom of the chat, we have pinned Carol's comment. It's a link to a mail register with translated headings. That's going to help you in your research. I don't know if you read Greek, so this is helpful. So we have translated headings of the document so that you can understand something about it. The local Peggy asks, where are the local archives? How would you say the office in Greek? So the local archives, the GAK, G-A-K, are the Greek General State Archives. They have an office at the capital in the capital of every region of the country. So, for example, Achaia has an office. The archives of Achaia have an office in Patra. The archives of Atiki have an office in Athens. The archives of Laconia have an office in Sparta. So it's GAK, G-A-K, and they have a website too. Anything else, guys? It's your time to have your questions answered. Carol just posted a link to the GAC regional offices, so check that out to get all the information you need. It's their addresses, their email addresses, the websites if they have one. If we order a record, are they in Greece pulling the record and mailing it to us, or they use email? So you mean, so people don't, you cannot order a record from a Greek municipality or the Greek archives, meaning that you will not pay to receive it. You can just email them, and they will email you back with the information and the record image if they have it. Now, if you mean about Greek ancestry, we have everything indexed, and we will email it to you. Great, Peggy, I'm glad. All right, let's take some last questions. Carol, if there is anything. Celeste asked something interesting. Where can we find out a village's municipality? That's interesting. So I have promised to post under resources. So on Greek Ancestry, if you go under education resources, we have a list of useful material. We will post a link to a resource about municipalities and administrational changes. Of course, if you search on Google in Greek, you can find that out. But you told me you don't write Greek, so yeah, we will post something soon. If we find the person who asked before about the ordering a record, if we find the record in the index of Greek Ancestry, yeah, you just order it, and we will email you the information in Greek, in English, the record image for free. The record image, we don't charge for the image, and the full source citation. Gregory asks, when I went to Greece to do research, I found out that the Greek archives are not networked with the main office in Athens and the local provincial offices. Any idea of if this will happen or not? I can't tell you. The thing is that the archives, the general state archives, and the municipalities are not always on the best terms, because the archives want the archives, right? The records, and municipalities are sometimes reluctant. But yeah, I don't know. It really depends on the area, on the archive, on the mayor, anything. Can you explain what you mean by municipality versus town, village? Okay, so in Greece, municipality is an administrational unit. One municipality may include many villages, and it has a capital. So all its records are all the area's records, let's say, are kept there. And then above municipality, we have region, and then we have province, and it's a state. Just like in the states that you have county and state. Someone asked, what's the link for GAC? Carol has posted it above in the chat. So please take a look. If you just type GAK archives or something, you will find it. And of course, guys, if you have any other questions, you can always email us either through Greek Ancestry, the website, under contact, or you can just send us a message here on Facebook, and we will reply soon. Carol's resources are great. Congratulations, Carol. If one becomes a dual citizen of Greece, do they automatically enter into the mail registers? I cannot answer that. I'm not sure. I'm not sure because they were not born in Greece, and perhaps they will not even have to serve in the army. So perhaps not. All right, I think we could wrap it up now. Again, thank you all very much for participating. Next week, we'll be discussing Δημοτολόγια, town or family registries. And just keep asking us if you have any other questions. We are glad to help. Remember that we offer free consultations, free Greek genealogy consultations every weekend. So you can book yours under extras on Greek Ancestry. Gregory asks if there is a fee in Greece to look up records in the GAC. No, it's a free public service. When did the names of the villages in the Peloponnese change from Turkish to Greek? That's a very, very interesting question, but we need to discuss it in detail. Name changes of villages happened not just once, many times by consequent regimes in Greece. And they were not all Turkish. Some were Greek, some were of Slavic origin. So we have everything. All right, guys. So again, thank you very, very much. I really appreciate this, and it's a great experience for me too. Because don't think that I know all that stuff. I also learn. I also learn every time I'm preparing these webinars. And as long as we are all stuck inside, we will continue this nice initiative so that we have all something to look for in our weekends. Have a great day. Again, thank you to those in Australia, and see you next week. Okay.